I want to protect that.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to City Council Chambers. To everyone listening at home, this is this evening's joint budget presentation. Not joint to say, but presentation by the school department for the City Council. And before I turn it over to the City Manager for a few comments on the budget, we have one procedural item. Councilor Grasso.
Thank you, Assistant Mayor. I would like to get consensus from the school board and from the City Council that in June we were scheduled to have a presentation about the Portsmouth listens on June 11th. The City Council is due to have a meeting on June 18th. At this time, I was wondering, because they need more time, if we could get a consensus from the school board and from the City Council members to have our council meeting on June 25th instead of June 18th. Then the Portsmouth Listens would present their report to the joint school board and City Council on June 18th.
Excuse me. Okay, so what you're saying is you're going to be asking the City Council to change their regular scheduled City Council meeting?
Yes, and we will do that at the council meeting on Monday. But right now, we thought that since we had everybody here, we would see if there was any obstacles in the way of doing that, so that we could get a report from Portsmouth Listens on June 18th, and then the council would have their regular meeting on June 25th.
I don't see any problem with that, Joanne, on our side. When we saw the presentation, I see no.
Is that?
Couple of weeks is fine. I talked to Jimmy Nukas yesterday and said a week was the difference. I saw no issue.
And that would give, by having the presentation on June 18th, the school board would and the council will have a good week and a day to get the report in advance. If there are any problems from any of the councilors.
So then you would put that on the agenda.
I will bring it
on
up.
Monday's meeting.
I will bring it up on Monday. I know we have to do it on Monday's meeting.
There is an item already that is recommending the 11th. So all you have to do is amend that.
Okay.
So there is an item on the agenda.
And then we would just have that on the 18th and the council meeting on the 25th.
If I can get the agenda tomorrow, I'll change it before it goes out.
All right.
Okay. So if not, it's on the agenda anyways, so it should be okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, thank you, Your Honor. One thing I wanted to do before we get into the presentation, the system here. Sorry.
Sure. Yep.
Before we get into the meeting itself and the presentation from the school department, I wanted to pass around an updated health insurance sheet. As many of you know, our health insurance did a lot better than we expected and came in at about less than 1%. But given that we have the stabilization fund, what that did was it recalibrated the 10-year average from 11.7% to 10.5%. And so what we'll do is Judy Belanger, Finance Director, will work with Steve Bartlett, and we'll work on the reductions in the appropriate departments as that number reflects. And you can see in the school department, we'll be able to reduce the budget down by $57,856. That means the school department budget overall will have come in at 5.7%. Or $34,326,773 with that adjustment. And you can see what the other adjustments are in the other departments. There's about $100,000 savings from that rate setting that took place this week. So we will do that, obviously, as part of the formal budget adoption. And I just wanted to let the departments know, and since the school department's here tonight, I wanted to advise you of that. And as I did at the last meeting, I just wanted to advise the people at home that the next meeting that the City Council will have regarding work sessions will be the municipal budgets on Wednesday, May 9th. Subsequent to that, there will be a reopening of the public hearing on May 14th. That's a Monday at 7 p.m. here in the council chambers, and will be televised. And on May 15th, the City Council will have its final budget review in a work session at 6:30 here in the council chambers. And we will then hopefully vote on the budget on or about May 22nd. It's a special meeting that has been scheduled, and hopefully the budget will be adopted at that time. So without further information, that unless there's any questions, turn it back over to the school department. Very good.
Good evening, Mayor Marchant, members of the City Council, school administrators who are all here representing all the schools in Portsmouth, school board members, Mr. Bohenko, and members of the community. Thank you very much for once again giving us the opportunity to come before you and the community to discuss the Portsmouth School Department. We'd like to provide you tonight with some information about the school department. We know that we have given you some other information in the past about the revenues and expenditures, and the meeting that we came to you in April, on April 18th, we provided you with a handout which has some of that information, as well as additional information that is in the city budget book. But just as this year's budget process has been a little bit different than in past years, we'd like to tonight present you with a little different presentation. Because I believe that we need to be looking at the school department as a systems approach, meaning that we go pre-K through 12 and adult education, that we don't want to just isolate the elementary or the middle school or the high school. We want you to have a good picture of what happens in the Portsmouth School Department and in the schools. So we're going to present something very different tonight. On the table in front of you, you will find a copy of the hot off the press Portsmouth Public Schools School District Profile. We decided to put this together not only for the City Council and the school board, but also we plan to send this to every house in the city where so people will have information about each one of the schools and talk about, so to be able to have an understanding of where we get our grant money, where we get our funding, what the priorities of the schools are, how many students, so everything is in this. So we provide you with this this evening. And actually, if I can ask you to, if you have questions or anything through any of the speakers that will be up here, and there are several people who have very brief presentations to make, we ask that you hold the questions to the end, and we'd be glad to answer any questions. All of the information we have is readily available. We'd be glad to take any questions from anyone in the community or anyone who needs any information about anything we're talking about this evening. The highlights of the Portsmouth School Department are, and I'd like to just kind of skim through these because I know we have a PowerPoint presentation, but I strongly believe that we don't want to expose you to death by PowerPoint. But we want to make sure that you have all the information that you need. As of this morning, there were 2,634 students in the Portsmouth schools pre-K through grade 12. There are 514 employees and 7 buildings. The school district goals that we have this year are literacy for all and a personalized education for all students. And you've heard me speak before about this year and what we needed to do for the budget to be able to propose to the city school department budget, that we spent a great deal of time reorganizing positions and even made some eliminations so we could be able to put the resources and move the resources to where the students' needs are. So there have been many changes with different positions and different job descriptions, and that is a continuing process. As you know, 80% of the school department budget is salaries and wages, and we have great collaborations with the city, which include athletics, the legal department, the library, and that is for efficiency and sharing of resources. Performance measures. And this is the basic question is, how are we doing? And we're always happy to talk about what our staff and our students are involved in. And this is some information that we're asked about all the time, and we're proud to be able to share this. But the high school state assessment scores are in the top 10 in the state. That's of 74 high schools. Portsmouth Middle School has a higher percentage of students scoring proficiency than the state in reading and math. In the elementary schools, all subgroups have made adequate yearly progress. Scores on the state assessments continue to be on par or above state averages. The SAT scores are above the state and national averages in all reading, and that includes in all areas, including reading, math, and writing. But we're not only concerned with state tests, because we're also concerned with benchmarks that teachers are developing along the way, because as our children go through the programs and through the schools, we want to make sure that they're learning on a regular basis. So other benchmarks are certainly being developed all the time. And I just want to say that we're not only identifying performance measures for students and children in the academic areas, but we believe our students are artists, scientists, and musicians, and they all are involved in many different aspects of an educational program. Some accomplishments, and I have at the background here the percussion group that just came back from Ohio and took second in the world, and that in itself is a big deal. But the bigger deal is the amount of time that students have taken to be able to practice and to perform, to be able to get to that point. And this is only one example, and you'll hear other examples from the school administrators. But some of the accomplishments that we have is we continue to look at the cost savings in the school department. That's something we probably never really looked at before, but I can tell you that we're looking at that all the time. We have a low dropout rate, 2.1% in the state, which is 23 students. And I've shared with the school board in the past a profile of each one of those 23 students and what interventions were involved with each student, where they are, and some of them have come back. So we're pretty proud of that, although in the bottom line is that no dropouts are really acceptable. We attract highly qualified teachers to the city of Portsmouth, and we're proud of that because we have a lot of people who want to work here, and a lot of times we don't have to advertise too much about openings that are available because we have people that want to come to the city of Portsmouth and work in our schools. And to only have 3 or 4 accomplishments is a little bit insulting, so I just want to say that because this could go on forever, as you can imagine, and I won't, but there are numerous awards and recognition to the faculty and students have received at all levels. So we have many accomplishments in the school department. Challenges, and you've heard me talk about challenges before, and a couple that are at the top of the list and we have to be aware of all the time include maintaining acceptable class sizes, using data and demographics for future planning, the number of retirements of experienced educators, the loss of several positions over the years, certainly the infrastructure, because this is not just about students and about learning, this is all about what we do with our buildings and how we maintain our buildings, and any additional eliminations in the school budget would impact, at this point, direct classroom instruction. As I said, the budget is 86% wages and salaries. That doesn't leave a lot of other money available for what we need for tools and classroom materials. So we're being very frugal in a lot of areas, and I think that you'll find that the teachers are purchasing some of their own materials, and also there's a lot of sharing going on, and we certainly promote that sharing, not only in the school department, with the other city departments as well. A couple of other people would like to make presentations, and if I can just recognize Mr. Kent LePage, the school board chair.
I'm going to be brief also. We did a dry run today, and I'm very excited about the way we're presenting this, and maybe this is the way we should have done it in the past, because as the elected officials, we could talk about the political side and some of the financial and maybe even some of the personal and emotional sides. But the individuals you're going to hear from very shortly, with 3 to 6 minutes each one of them speaking, you will be impressed of what does happen and what they do with the taxpayers' money and the tuition money that comes into the city of Portsmouth. Here you are seeing a list of the 9 school board members that are elected into the city of Portsmouth. These 9 come with 9 different ideas. We've been creative. We've been able to create more with less. I know that's a catchphrase, but these individuals have given blood, sweat, and tears to make sure that the children of Portsmouth are covered with every possible education, as it said, personalized education that can happen. We also on the team have representatives from, as our employee representative Linda Burlett, We also have had a student on for a number of years now since I've been on the board, Elisa Lozier. She's actually from Rye and sits on the board and has been extremely helpful, as all our students have. Lastly is SAU 50, and we have to keep in mind that SAU 50, out of the whole budget, is about 11 to 12% of this budget, around $4 to $4.5 million that comes into the city. They are a portion of our consumers along with the taxpayers of the city of Portsmouth. And they are keeping a close eye, and we're working very close with George Cushing, and they are our friends, and we have a great relationship, but they want to make sure that they're getting the best possible education for those students from the Rye, Greenland, Newcastle, and Newington school system. We're very fortunate that we meet with them on a monthly basis and discuss issues and make sure that they are well heard. And we're working on it because I think there has been a gap over the last year and a half that we're now narrowing. I'm going to close and just mention just a couple of anomalies here. The anomalies that you're going to hear in just a second is, just a moment ago you had Dr. Lister up here, and in a few minutes you'll have John Stokel. The two individuals, if you combine the number of years that they've been in the system, is over 70 years worth of education and administrative duties to the city of Portsmouth. That in itself is a major accomplishment. These two individuals could have walked away a number of years ago, retired at any time, and been very proud. Why are they here? They enjoy coming to work every day and seeing the accomplishments of the students of Portsmouth and the surrounding towns. The other side of the coin is we got a lot of new faces that are starting to crop up. And, you know, we have actually two brand new administrators that are very new. They have less than a year. But I'm going to be able to introduce an individual now on his second year as an administrator and a number of years as a teacher within the Little Harbor District. George Shea will be representing all three elementary schools during this presentation. I thank you, and I'm excited to see this budget move along. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. And in case you're wondering, I'm the 6 minutes. Just so you know, I'm the only one guilty of 6 minutes. So I'm here tonight to present an overview of the state of the city's three elementary schools. And while I could wax prolific on the high caliber of staff and educational programming throughout Portsmouth elementary schools, I'll try and be concise. Portsmouth's three elementary schools, Dondero, Little Harbor, and New Franklin, have developed a highly collaborative model in recent years. The three buildings share many fiscal, human, and intellectual resources. Itinerant employees circulate throughout the buildings. Grade-level teachers exchange ideas and challenges through email. And economies of scale are realized through group professional development and project opportunities. Now, each year we face a 0% operating budget increase. I'm going the wrong way. Thanks. And each year we work to figure out a way to continue to provide an outstanding education to all Portsmouth children. Since the budget cap for the elementary schools is across the board, it's unresponsive to elementary district changes in population. So this year the elementary schools developed a more fluid and responsive operating budget model, which began with a 0% increase for the bottom line, established per pupil allocations for each school, and then redistributed the funds out to the other schools based on their enrollments. And if you look at this chart, you can see our last year's total operating budget of 175,946, and the individual school lines. We subtracted a couple building-specific fixed costs and came up with these totals and divided by our total enrollment at that time and came up with a per pupil allocation of $125.71, which we then redistributed to the schools and based on their November enrollments, and came up with these totals, which differ a little bit for each individual school. But the bottom line, somehow through the magic of math, comes out $5 less than last year. It was supposed to be exact, but perhaps Mr. Bohenko and Mr. Bartlett can figure that out for us sometime.
We'll take
now,
less.
an operating budget, however, deals primarily with things, and I'd hesitate to apply the same model to human resources, where there are definitely more variables to consider. With constricting teacher resources over the past 5 years, we've had to look at the teacher school pools as one pool of resources and make difficult allocation decisions, each one of which means a sacrifice somewhere. Because students' special needs are increasing as staffing is decreasing, and that's a hard inverse to travel. Next year, Dondero School will become a targeted Title I assistance school, joining Little Harbor and New Franklin as Title I schools. And this is a situation where the federal government says, yes, congratulations, based on your free and reduced lunch populations, you're entitled to use federal funds to support Title I students. However, we're not going to give you any more money. So you have to spread around what you already have, and this is in the face of our Title I monies going down in each of the last 2 years. As a result, the principals and the Title I director, Joanne Simons, have worked together to figure out exactly how to appropriately staff Dondero with existing staffing. Now, we're able to do so much of what we do and offer the programs that we do because of just the amazing legions of volunteers who support and supplement the work of Portsmouth elementary schools. Teachers put in countless hours beyond the workday to work in extracurricular activities and just plain work late. Sometimes really late, to make sure that they're prepared to give their students a profound educational experience each day. We have no district budgeting for field trips, buses to field trips, after-school enrichment programs, sports uniforms, after-school homework clubs, artist in residence, and environmental school. And yet all these important and enriching programs exist and flourish because of hyperactive fundraising, and I mean this in a good way, from our PTOs, PTAs, PEP 2000, booster clubs, and invested families. Other elements that this budget supports are a strong emphasis on literacy throughout all of the 3 buildings, carefully individualized instruction and programming to meet each child, materials and resources to support a diverse span of learners, and then support and professional development in the district for math, science, and social studies. At the elementary level, we also conduct regular assessments to measure students' responses to instruction, as well as we have focused professional development. And another component in this budget is full-day kindergarten. Now, the merits of full-day kindergarten warrant their own forum, so I won't plunge too deeply into them tonight. I'll just briefly mention here the importance of this program, and it's so important that other budgets have taken significant hits to make way for full-day kindergarten. The high school, the middle school, and other programs believe in the educational value and the investment in full-day kindergarten so much that they've made budgetary and staffing sacrifices just to make it happen. At the kindergarten ages of 5 and 6, neurons are firing hard and critical cognitive connections are being made. Numerous research studies, particularly those by the states of Indiana and Kansas, have shown very strong correlations between participation in full-day kindergarten programs and later academic achievement, which now I know why you guys were interested in it, because you get something out of it. You're acting like martyrs, high school and middle school, but you do benefit. These studies have shown that more time spent on developmentally appropriate activities in kindergarten do yield higher cognitive development. Overall, children stemming from full-day programs score higher on standardized tests, have fewer retentions, and fewer Title I and special education placements, which also yields a cost savings. Participation in well-developed full-day preschool programs has just skyrocketed nationwide, and we're seeing a different kind of 5-year-old walking through the doors these days. The kindergarten classroom today is also a lot different from that which any of us remember. Federal requirements and state grade level expectations have placed a significant instructional burden on kindergarten teachers that never existed before. And none of these standards have to do with block stacking. They're all about literacy and math. And I think it's most appropriate to visualize the change to full-day kindergarten more as a release valve than additional piping. If you come into one of our kindergartens today, you will be amazed at how much age-appropriate learning they can cram into 2.5 hours. And if you take away a specials class, it's really about an hour and 45 minutes. But it's an extremely harried and not really appropriate pace for 5- and 6-year-old children. If you came in, you would be amazed at what these teachers manage to teach and the love and care that they extend to each student. But it would also make you wonder and marvel at what these individuals could do with a full-day program and how it would reestablish some of the valued kindergarten elements of yesteryear. That's it, and I want to thank you for hearing us. And now I'm going to pass the microphone on to Mr. John Stokel, principal of the middle school. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Good evening, and I really appreciate the opportunity to present to the council and the board this evening. I have a couple of slides that I'm going to talk about. First of all is the budgetary savings next year at the middle school. We do have retirement in our guidance department, and we took a hard look at that. And we also took a cue from the council from a few years ago, when the council was asking the board and the school department that when you have retirements, don't just fill positions and then ask for more. Look at different ways of being creative and working with the faculty and staff that you have. So we've decided that next year we are not going to fill that one guidance position, and instead I'm going to be asking people to take on more responsibilities throughout the building. The second is the Portsmouth Plus program. You may remember that about 4 years ago we were one of 4 middle schools who received a grant through 4 middle schools in New Hampshire that received a grant through Nellie Mae to begin an after-school homework club. That program has grown to a success rate where over half the student body participates in that homework club throughout the school year. That funding has gone from $89,000 the initial year to a budget of 0. But because of the success of that program, and I thought that I would definitely have to go to the board this year and ask for funding to continue the program, but because of the success, the Nellie Mae Foundation has graciously awarded us $40,000 for next year, and we have also written another grant to an outside agency, and we've been awarded $20,000 from that agency. So we'll be able to sustain this program without asking for taxpayers' dollars. And it's just a successful, outstanding program for our middle school students, a place where they can go after school with their teachers and paraprofessionals and receive extra help on their homework, and then they're able to take the late bus home, which is also a free service which we offer to our students. The third budgetary savings is the operating budget. For the past 5 years, we have continued with a 0% increase in our operating budget. In our next slide, I'll talk a bit about that. Budgetary concerns at the middle school. Our international language program, when we took on the philosophy of middle school instead of junior high school, and said that all of our 6th graders would have an opportunity to take an international language, either French or Spanish. When we began that program, that is now built to a success rate where at the 8th grade level, 65% of the students continue on in that program, and that is an elective. It's a very academic program. Our students who are successful for 3 years will then actually skip the first level in high school and begin the second level of international language. Now this, of course, causes a good problem for the middle school and for the high school, because what it means is my French and my Spanish teacher are pretty well maxed out with class sizes. As this success continues past 65%, I will need to look at funding for more international language faculty, and Jeff Collins will need to look for more at the high school because it's just going to increase the number of students in that program. I would love to see 100% of our students be fluent in a second language. Another concern is increasing class size. My 6th grade, incoming 6th grade next year is 196 students. Therefore, my class size will be 25-to-1. We will stay with our present 8 6th grade teachers. A couple of reasons why it'll be 25-to-1. First, we know there are no new positions for next year. And secondly, I do not have a classroom to put the 9th teacher in. Unmet needs, library funding. About 4 years ago, we began a program of rebuilding our library. We have a new librarian who was a teacher at the middle school. She went back and during a sabbatical, finished up her certification in library science, and is just doing a fantastic job for us with that library media center. And we've decided that that needs to be a priority in our budget. But we're not able to actually give her the amount of funding that she would really require and like. So that's another one of the unmet needs. Equipment. Since we've kept that 0% increase, I think we all realize that the cost of supplies and materials go up each and every year. Therefore, in next year's budget, there are no funds for new equipment or replacement of equipment. If things break during the school year, then I'll need to ask to move things around in my budget from supplies or from books in order to maintain that equipment. Operating budget, again, it's been 0%, and that's something that we as a school department will need to look at because we just can't stay at 0%. The cost of the materials that our students need in the classrooms, the costs have increased, and we're just going to have to move past that 0% in the future. And custodial staffing. This has been an issue, position that I have asked for a number of years. We just do not have the money in the budget in order to fill another position. And our building, the size of our building really calls for another custodial position in order to keep the maintenance going and fix the small, just the small maintenance projects that really have to be left off until vacations or summer. So those are our unmet needs and the way that we're trying to save money in the school department budget at the middle school. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Jeff Collins, the principal of Portsmouth High School.
Thank you, John. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of being here this evening. I can't tell you how proud I am to stand before you and sing some of the praises of Portsmouth High School. It's just a truly wonderful place to be on a daily basis. As you can see from my first slide, some of the highlights of Portsmouth High School. Just this past quarter three, about 40%, a little over 40% of our students attained high honors or the highest honors within our school. Over 94% of our students feel connected to some adult presence in the building, which is a fantastic number. But as Dr. Lister said earlier, with the dropout rate, we have to be looking at that other 6% and what are we doing to connect these kids back into the school. We have over 40 clubs and organizations, and that is growing on a daily basis. We have kids coming to me on a, basically on a weekly basis and say, Mr. Collins, can we offer this? Can we offer this? What are these clubs? The thing you have to remember about these clubs and organizations is many of them are manned and staffed by staff members at the high school who don't get paid for these positions, but they're giving up their time to be with the students and making those meaningful connections that we're talking about. We have over 199 courses at the high school at all different levels. Talk about follow the child. We are doing that at the high school level. There is something for everyone at Portsmouth High School. Our NEAP scores, our mean scaled scores exceed the state average, and we've been doing so over the past 5 years. Our percussion ensemble, as Dr. Lister illustrated earlier in a slide, came in second in the world. Now, when I first heard that they were going to the World Championships, I figured, yeah, national, state or whatever. No, these are World Championship. This is a World Championship competition. And they fundraised enough money to go to Ohio, and they came back and they came in second in the world, a fantastic feat. Again, these are teachers and students that are putting in the extra time to be there. I can't tell you how disappointed they were on a couple of the snow days 2 weeks before they went away. The snow day, and we had the snow in the afternoon, and we had the rain when we had to cancel their practices. These kids wanted to be in school. What a great thing that is. Our chorus was invited to participate in the Festival of Gold concert in New York City. I have to tell you, most of the high schools that were down there at the time were performing arts high schools. We were only one of 2 comprehensive high schools that were invited down to this competition. Another truly great feat. PHS students are accepted into some of the most selective colleges and universities in the country. Our acceptances are rolling in. We have kids looking at who are already accepted going to BU, BC, Cornell. We have kids going all over the place, and just wonderful, wonderful to see these coming in. We're also accredited through the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, another great accomplishment. We are in our 5th year of our 10-year reaccreditation. We just went through with the faculty really comprehensive the beginning of the year, coming up with our 5-year comprehensive plan. It was a wonderful way to really get acquainted with everything that was going on in the high school. It was a time for us all to sit back and reflect and say, what are we doing to make what do we want our students to know and be able to do? Some of the things, as we look at cutting budgets and things along that nature, I'm new to the district, and I like to take a little bit of a historic approach. Over the past couple of years, as you've heard from a number of different principals up here, our supply and book budgets have been level funded. There really hasn't been much of an increase in our supplies over the past 4 years. A number of years ago in 03-04, we had restructured the department head position, taking a planning period away from them and putting them into the class full time. So picking up those extra class sections so we can maintain the class size numbers that we have. We've also reduced the teaching positions in the English department by 1.5 teachers over this time span. We've eliminated a half-time sped teacher, drama position, 2 business teachers, and I have to also mention, we over that period of time, we also eliminated the athletic director position. Many of these positions are things that we're looking at to again bring back. Thank goodness we have the wonderful partnership with the city and Russ Wilson, and he'll get into some of the Clipper Pride stuff down the road. But I tell you, it's been wonderful to have him on board at Portsmouth High School. We're also talking about bringing business back to the high school. A wonderful course, and we have to thank also some city members for offering a entrepreneurship class at the high school that's taught by local business people, which will fill up. We offered it and it filled up in a couple of days. It was just a wonderful opportunity. This year, as we are all team players, and I have to tell you, it's wonderful to work on a team of educators within the central office. We have eliminated one of our secretarial positions. We've reduced that, and other cuts to our budget will certainly impact professional staff and it will impact student instruction. Some of our unmet needs, some of the things that we're looking at in the future, definitely looking at increasing our math teacher, increasing and adding another math teacher. World language teacher, as Mr. Sokol has illustrated, the world language programs are growing. We certainly could utilize another world language teacher. As I mentioned earlier, 1.5 positions were cut in the English department. We would look at, again, lowering the class size and hiring another English teacher. Technology for classroom use, textbooks, and the music program in order to bring that to the very next level. We've been competing in one arena. We'd love to kick it back up to the next level. A lot of these things that you see here are based upon student needs, and that's what we're all about. So thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to introduce Russ Wilson, our athletic director.
Thank you, Jeff. Before I start, actually, I'm going to be on the 3-minute end of this, so I'm sure you're thankful for that. Before I start, I'd like to thank Mayor Marchant and the City Council, Chairman LePage, and the school board. About a year ago at this time, you folks were asked to think outside the box, and shortly after that, you were asked to make a decision outside the box and allow us to assume the duties, the athletic duties at PHS. We thank you for that. From our perspective, it's been very successful, and we've thoroughly enjoyed working with Principal Collins and the whole staff at PHS. Also, special thanks to City Manager Mahenko and Superintendent Lister for their terrific support in that merge. As always, they're very helpful. PHS Athletics, athletic success. We have 22 varsity sports. Every single one of them have already made or will make, and that's my prediction for the spring, the playoffs and/or postseason for the first time in Portsmouth High School history. We'll probably be the only school in Class L that can make that claim this year. So athletically, we've been very successful in the move to Class L. Academic success, over 85% of our athletes are scholar athletes, meaning that they made the honor roll during the semester, during the sport that they played. The discipline, time management, and desire to excel carries over from athletics to the classroom and vice versa. We're also very proud this year. We had 12 students make the state scholastic athletic awards, which is a very prestigious award, and we had 12 student athletes do that from Portsmouth High. The intangible benefits, the morale and spirit of the school and the community has increased significantly with the success of all the after-school activities, not just athletics, but the band, the choir, the percussion ensemble. Whenever one of these groups do well, when the athletic teams are in the playoffs, the energy in the school is palpable and increases significantly. Increased participation. With over 900 active rostered athletes at PHS, and that translates to about 600 to 700 actual student athletes. There's been a dramatic increase in the participation since our teams have become more competitive. Mr. Stokel also said at the middle school he's finding out the same thing with more participation at the middle school in athletics. Track coach says he hasn't seen numbers like these since the 1970s. The football team had its largest freshman class in decades, and interest in athletic participation for all sports is at an all-time high. The school and the city benefits. Both the city and the school have benefited greatly from this merge. There is obviously better coordination, better communication, much more interplay between the departments with school programs reaching out to city programs and vice versa. The financial considerations. The move to Class I from Class L was a very, very good decision, and whoever had a part of that, and I did not, thank you very much, but it does come with a cost. The away trips are much longer, the playoff games are much more numerous, which is a very good thing, and greater participation means greater cost for everyone. Our booster clubs are a tremendous source of support for all the teams at PHS, but obviously our greatest support is from the school board and the city council. We thank you very much for continued support and look forward to anything that you have to ask for us later. At this time, Susan Burrell, our tech coordinator, will come with a brief presentation.
Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to meet some of you for the first time, to again address the school committee members, and of course to address my colleagues that I work with every day. The technology budget reflects the needs of a digital learning place with technology-savvy students and staff. The monies proposed in this budget reflect our need to sustain our infrastructure, including our school networks, our internet services, our technical staff, and the needs of our teachers and staff who use these tools in the service of following each child. During the last 10 years, the way we do school business has certainly changed. Data drives our funding and our mission. It is our charge as educators to make sure that all students achieve. We want to make sure that we track each child's progress so that we can catch them when they need more challenge or more practice and move them forward to become self-sufficient learners. Because of this change, we find that we have a gap or a hole in our carefully crafted infrastructure. With the advent of No Child Left Behind and Follow the Child, we have the need to add another layer to our foundation and infrastructure. The layer and the foundation that we need to add at this time is a new student information system, and it's a challenge. It's going to help each of us that work in the schools follow each child's progress toward graduation. Our old system has been around since 1995 for about 12 years. This is before we used the internet to communicate and to collaborate. There is no longer development for this system. It's not centralized, and each school's database doesn't talk and play well with all the other databases that we're using. We have examined model systems that have one point of data entry, and that data is then shared amongst hundreds of users. There's no replication or duplication with this kind of information. The data is web-based and can be accessed by teachers, parents, and students as they are doing and planning their lessons. Our choice, after a lengthy year-long process of study, review, talk, visits, and webinars, is a system called Infinite Campus. It contains sections like you see on the slide, and it helps us follow each child with their unique capabilities to graduation. One of the major selling points is the learning management system that you see on the left. We hope to bring these capabilities right down to the teacher desktop. Currently, we don't have any of that at our fingertips. It has a great SPED module, which is also a plus and seamlessly integrates the data from SPED with the core curriculum, with the test scores, and the demographics of each student. Most importantly, it helps all learners in the community. Parents can log on and check the daily assignments for students. They can see the students' progress, and they can communicate with school staff. The parents are a big component of each child's education, and they really need to be involved daily in what schools are doing. and the technology allows this to happen right now. Yesterday, I spent the morning at the DOE in Concord. There are even more submissions and reports being planned to follow the child. They will shortly ask us to send in our elementary school schedules and student room assignments. They will take this data and marry it with the state test scores of each student. This will allow schools to track student progress longitudinally from year to year. It's exciting to know that data like this can help parents, teachers, and staff find the resources and instructional strategies that they need to help each student achieve self-sufficiency in learning and eventually get a diploma. The system's implementation plan will be key to its success, and much professional development will be planned for staff and teachers using the train-the-trainer and coaching models. The second line item in the budget that I'd like to speak with you about tonight is our elementary computers. As many of you that have been in the schools have seen, our classrooms are full of older 6 or 7-year-old classroom computers. They are okay for word processing and typing and a couple of math practice games, but they don't allow kids to do any more than that, and they certainly don't allow teachers to show kids the world because they're incapable right now of being on our school network. Teachers can't use these machines for productivity tasks, nor can they see and use them for student work. We need to find a way to support technologies in the classroom as a way for students to have engaging, kinesthetic, and hands-on learning. Kids can learn to read better when they have immediate feedback, scaffolding, and coaching. This is what technology can do for kids. These tools can help children learn at a comfortable pace and with visual, engaging, real-world images. As George alluded to before, the 5-year-old kindergarten student that comes to our schools is much, much different than he was 10 years ago. Many of them have sat on their parents' lap while their parents have been doing email, and they're very comfortable with the keyboard. They're comfortable with MP3 devices. They're comfortable with putting in CD-ROMs at the age of 3. And they come to school, and none of those tools are available to them in the classroom. If we don't replace the computers this year, we will be up against replacing computers at other levels at the same time as elementary. We've been really good here in Portsmouth, although this is my first year here, of funding a replacement plan year after year for computers. It's the elementary's turn, and I think we must keep sacred the replacement plan if we are not going to end up with a huge multi-million-dollar issue in a couple of years with replacement at all the schools. All new technologies at the elementary level must include professional development training so that teachers can feel comfortable and supported in teaching with these tools. You'll see that alluded to in the budget, and that's something that I definitely would not cut. Thank you.
And thank you for your patience, and we would like to finish up here. But I would like to finish by saying, as the superintendent of schools, I couldn't be any prouder to present to you tonight the school administrators who sit before you with a high caliber and expertise and professionalism and leadership that they show on a daily basis, as well as the teachers in the district. But I'm very proud of the school administrators, and I think we have a high caliber of people. And on behalf of the Portsmouth School Board, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening. I do have one other thing I'd like to do, and that is ask Steve Bartlett, who's the school administrator. He did have one piece of information he wanted to provide.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council, and school board members. In the information that was handed out this evening, there was a loose page labeled page number 213. It's a replacement page for 213 in your budget book. During a discussion with Finance Director Judy Belanger, we discovered that while trying to align our budget format more closely with the one in the city book, one of the spreadsheet formulas in the section didn't do what it was supposed to do, and it came up with a couple of numbers that came to the right totals, but the individual line items were different. So it only affected some of the line items in the operating budget. However, the overall increase and the overall percentages are exactly as they were before. It was just a detail error.
And Your Honor, I'd like to thank Steve and the superintendent for working so closely with us. You might notice there's some changes in the budget this year that we asked for, and they were extremely cooperative, and we appreciate it. It really pretty much makes a pretty uniform document when you look at it. So thank you, and sometimes those glitches happen.
Thank you very much. And when the board chair asks if he can have the last word, it's probably not a good idea to say no. So Mr. LePage said he would be brief, and he will close our presentation. Thank you.
I want to take just this opportunity 1 second to thank you, counselors and board members, for being here tonight. But most of all, because this was totally different and has not been done in the 16 years that I've been on the board, was to have actually a portion of our leadership team present to you. I want to thank each individual. And as it's become said in the school system, as it's being said in the school system, here's an example of the leadership, just a portion, a tip of the iceberg, if you would, of the leadership that's there, that a student has to work harder to fail in the Portsmouth school system than to succeed because of this leadership team you have before you. So I really want to thank them because they do care about the children. And we'll open it up to questions, and we told them that if needed, they can answer the questions also. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks very much. We'll indeed open it up for questions or comments. I do want to reiterate, as the father of a almost 4-year-old and almost 2-year-old, the technological knowledge far exceeds my wife and my own. Using the DVD player as example number 1. That hit home very hard. At any rate, certainly this is the perfect time. We have everybody around. If you have any questions, this is the ideal time to ask, or comments for that matter. There will be a work session when we've completed all of the various individual work sessions, but this would be the time to get that information, ideally. And I guess the one thing I would just say personally is I appreciate the work that's gone into it. I've heard a lot of compliments already, speaking individually with other counselors and members of the community, and appreciate the work and appreciate the final product. So that's my 2 cents. But want to open it up for questions or comments from anybody else on the council. Yes, Councilor Dwyer.
It was really helpful to have the new format, I would say, because I think a lot of the questions that we had last year were really attempting to understand the flow of dollars. And thank you for the presentation. I think a lot of our questions will now be about the budget, because we really haven't talked about the budget. And one of the things, and you don't have to do this in detail, but would be helpful, I think, to us is to get a sense of the impact that retirements had on this budget and that retirements next year may have on the budget, because it's clear from kind of going through line item by line item that I think one of the advantages that you were able to take, as you've talked, Bob, about some reorganizations, is the difference between folks that have been at the top of the salary scale and the changes that have been occurring. So could you just give us an overall sense of the savings and I don't of salary from retirements that have impacted this, and whether we'd see a similar thing in the next couple of years, or whether this is an unusual year? And I know that what makes this a little hard is because of the state retirement benefit increase this year, that obscures that a little. So I'm not worried about benefits, but just so that we can get a sense, is this an unusual year that you've been able to do some reallocations because of savings on retirement, or is this something we will see over the next couple of years?
Well, Mr. Bartlett will also answer this, but last year we had about 12 retirements. This year we had 11, and next year we have about 12 to 14. And that has a big impact on what we're doing. The retirements, the health care, as you've seen in the budget before, and the COLA are all things that take a big chunk out of our budget. But we have been able to allocate some resources. We have not replaced some of those people. But we're not always hiring when someone leaves at the top of the scale. We're not always fortunate to find someone who's at the bottom of the scale, so to speak. So we've had to equal that off in different ways. But if I could ask Steve just to also respond to that.
Yeah, so when the end result of the budget involved some restructuring, and there were some movement of teachers within the budget, and there were 3 that were essentially in the teaching and professional section that were not replaced. There was a CTE teacher at the high school, there's a middle school guidance counselor, and a 4th grade teacher, a 4th grade elementary teacher. So that, based on the replacement cost that we put it at the beginning level of $56,000, that's about $168,000. The other retirements, the positions were held and replaced so that we could use and increase for the extra staffing needed, the 3 teachers for the full day kindergarten initiative.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Ms. Counselor.
I'd just like to thank you for the format you gave us. It was very understanding than trying to get through this book and find it. And I'd just like to thank you for all the creative work you've done in changing things away and getting out of the box or in the box, whatever it is. And I think that we're doing very well, and we should be very proud of our school system.
Thank you. Good. Councilor Whitehouse.
I'm not going to thank anybody because that's really your job. That's how I feel. Anyway, Dr. Lister.
Do you write greeting cards for a living?
It took me a little while to get a laugh out of this. How come? Dr. Lister, last year.
You should see him on Sunday morning.
Last year, Bob, the PASS program was in jeopardy. It seems as though you didn't have enough students to make it a wash item, not a profitable, but an item that, is essential. Money comes in, money goes out. How does it look this year?
Right now, we're doing well.
Every 26 students last year.
We're always looking for new students for the program.
Yeah.
Nancy Roy, the principal, is always recruiting, looking for students in different districts as well as in the Portsmouth district. It's like watching the stock market. We just watch it all the time.
Any idea
funding
how many
is
students?
definitely always a problem.
Any idea how many students up there this year?
There are about maybe 22 students at this point.
Okay.
25, Nancy's
25, yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Yep, Councilor.
Dr. Lister, is that the example, our PASS, is that the example the governor is using towards keeping the children in school till they're 18? Is our PASS program a model for that?
Yeah, actually, the governor's looking at 2 things. He's looking at the career tech centers around the state. So we've talked with the governor and Dr. Tracy about Portsmouth High School and the PASS program. And I know that the principal, Nancy Roy, has invited the governor to come to the PASS program, and he's accepted an invitation. We're waiting to hear about the date to talk about that very issue, and that is the issue of 18, moving the dropout rate to 18, and being able to provide programs in the communities as a sample.
Thanks.
Councilor?
Just to follow up on that, of the 25 students, how many of those are from Portsmouth and how many of those are from outside of district?
If I can just ask Nancy behind you, Nancy.
You need to come to a microphone, Nancy.
I'm going to speak solely in terms of today, because the numbers today are different than they were yesterday, which were different than they were on Monday, and that speaks to the mobility of the program. We typically have 12 Portsmouth students all the time, with a waiting list of Portsmouth students to come to the program in Portsmouth for Portsmouth students. Today, we have I'll say 13 and a half Portsmouth students, because one student goes half-time to our school and half-time to the high school. And then as of today, I have 2 new out-of-district students coming. So yesterday, my numbers for out-of-district were 12. Today, 1 student was accepted but won't start until Monday. And then I have another student who is scheduled to start on Monday from 2 districts that I've never had students from before. So, and also, it is the end of the school year. It is very unusual to get out-of-district students who are going to pay for a full quarter of tuition when there's 6 weeks left of school. It's a really strange thing. I appreciate the questions about PATS because I do think over time it is going to be an issue that the school board is going to need to address in terms of who do we serve, why do we serve them, and how do we fund this program so we can have some continuity for those 12 Portsmouth students who attend daily. So their peers change very frequently. So I appreciate the questions. We're thrilled with the success that we're experiencing there and the collaborations that we're having with the New Hampshire community technical colleges and the collaboration that we're experiencing there. And I have to say to my colleagues who did a wonderful presentation today that we are always seeking integration. It's what's PATS about. We get it, that the resources are slim and that we need to look for those places of integration. So I appreciate it, the attention and the questions. Thank you.
Councilor Smith, the answer is 12.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you.
You got more laughed out of that than mine.
That's pretty good. Yes, Assistant Mayor.
Thank you. I thank you all for your fine presentation and your hard work, as have other councils. Dr. Lister, are there any besides unmet needs, and it was couched in terms of unmet needs, are there any programs that are being taken away or leaving our budget as a result of this year's process?
Well, the kinds of things we're looking at, Councilor Franny, are, as you heard from the middle school principal and the high school principal, languages. We want to provide more math and science. We really need to do something about business. Several years ago, we did away with the business teachers. However, I'm here before you to tell you that of the number of students who apply for colleges, the number one area they're going into is business. And the kids at the high school are saying, why isn't there a business program? We're very fortunate to have some business leaders in the community who are providing some programs for us at the high school with a certain number of kids, and they're doing a great job, and we're very fortunate that they're there. But it's something that we need to start looking at, as well as what the state is going to mandate for economics at the high school level down the road and in business. And we always want to do more, but we do a lot for our students and our children in the schools now. Everything from preschool to high school and even through the adult ed program. So there aren't any specific programs that I would mention, except that we really want to, that's the personalized education part of this. We want to be able to provide whatever students need. And certainly we need to do the math and science as well.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Councilor.
A couple, again, and just trying to get a handle on the kinds of staffing reorganizations that I know you've been working on and that you talked about. One of the things I noticed going through the budget, or it seemed that a number of the different kinds of clerical positions that you've had in the past are either not there or I don't know where they are. And I want you to address that. Is that partly with the advent of technologies that, you know, what's needed differently, or have you restaffed, or other people picking those up?
To be very honest with you, it doesn't have anything to do with technology. It has more to do with there isn't anything left to eliminate in the budget other than direct instruction, which is classroom teachers. And at this point, I refuse to do that. So we have eliminated 1.5 secretarial positions. We don't want to do that because those people have a real value to the school district, and someone's going to have to pick up their workload. But at the cost of cutting or eliminating a classroom teacher somewhere along the line and increasing the class size, I'm doing all I can to protect direct instruction to kids in the classroom.
And then just the technology questions. Would you show us where in the budget the anticipated request for the replacements at the elementary school? Where do we see those computer requests?
177 budget.
Page 242? I think so. Hold on.
Yeah, page 242.
We're finding this out.
What page did you say, John?
I think it's 242, yeah.
At the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that the $56,000, Steve?
No, that's the info system.
Okay, then I don't have it. There's new information, systems, equipment. It's $56,105. Is that it?
No,
That's the elementary
Okay.
info system.
Okay, that's in the technology plan.
That's cost center 177, that's what they said.
It says elementary right on it.
Okay, well, I'm sure Steve can find it.
I haven't seen it,
I haven't either.
which is why I asked the question. I was a little surprised, actually, when you presented it, because I didn't see it in the budget.
It's about 15,000 in there.
it is part of that 56,000.
Yeah, okay.
It's part of that, okay.
Yes, it is.
How much is it?
Okay, and so then about how much, what percentage or proportion does that replace? What does that do? What does that do?
Do a variety of things.
You need to come to the microphone, please.
Do you want to come here?
Go to the,
We can use that one.
yeah.
When we initially crafted the budget, we did it with replacing all fifth grade teachers' computers only in all 3 elementary schools. And then we talked to an agent at one of the companies that told us that if we leased the machines, which we had done at the middle school, that we could actually get 40 computers out of that. And the 40 computers would service grade levels 3, 4, and 5 in the classrooms. So that money is in there to either do a lease or to buy 1 grade level of computers. We really don't want to do the 1 grade level of computers because if we do 1 each year, it'll take us forever to outfit the elementary schools, and by that time, we'll be dealing with the high school and the middle school. So from past practice, I guess, the way we've bought computers at the elementary schools is 3, 4, and 5, and K through 2. That's what I've been told by the technology committee. There was a K through 2 buy, and then a 3 through 5 buy.
And again, just to clarify, you've talked about these as a classroom. Is this separate from like the computer labs I've seen in the schools?
Yes, it is. It's
And so how many
definitely-
do you purchase per classroom when you, for a
Well,
buy?
okay, that is for 1 new computer for each elementary classroom, that
Okay.
number.
So that's the basic computer, and then the labs are on a different cycle?
The labs are on a different cycle. You're correct about that. The labs actually are 2 or 3 years old, I believe. And so they are on a different cycle. They're much more upgraded than the classroom machines. Our dilemma is that a teacher cannot use the classroom machines to do any productivity work or to present information to the whole class or to even use a computer to help a child practice certain skills from a resource that's internet-based with the machines that are in the classroom right now. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's helpful, because I know I've seen the labs looking fairly new, and so that was.
Yes, they are definitely on a different cycle.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. Other questions or comments? All right, I see shaking of heads. All right, very good. I'm looking at this side of the table, but before we finish up, any feedback from the other end? I know we've been firing it at you, but anything back? Oh, yep, I see Councilor Dwyer.
I noticed in the building repair and the maintenance kinds of things that the high school costs are actually much higher than the, I would have expected to see actually more costs at the middle school particularly and at the elementary schools, and especially given that we just finished the high school. I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
I'll just make a couple mentions. One of them is with the new school that we have keeping it on up, is the labs themselves have to be recycled. The drains and so forth alone is an added cost, and that is a requirement that the filtering and so forth in all the science labs, which we never had because we didn't have labs that were used up until the new high school. So I know that's a major part, and I know Steve said some of the maintenance.
Well, one of the other things is you added a lot of square footage in the high school, and it is new mechanical technology, and it runs and is controlled by a lot more motors and switches and filters and everything else. So the basic upkeep and maintenance of a more sophisticated system did in fact, along with the square footage, increase some of the cost.
Your Honor, just if I might, one of the things that you'll see next Wednesday night in the municipal budget is a proposal for a facilities engineer. And that was something that came out of last year's budget discussion. And as was discussed earlier with cooperation with the schools as it relates to athletics, the labor attorney, and other areas of cooperation, what we'll do is, even though it's going to be funded out of the municipal general fund portion, we will allow, just like we do with the city attorney's office, labor, and other things, that resource will be available to the schools. And it'll be my intent to have that person work a substantial amount of time with whoever in the schools the superintendent feels necessary. I suspect that person could work up to 30 to 40, maybe even 50% of their time. And one of the things I think we're going to have that person do, if the city council approves it, is to pretty much do an inventory of what we have, kind of a master plan of our buildings, and then every building, as Steve said, this one in particular, the high school, has a lot of mechanicals that need to be inventoried and made sure that manuals are in place and that all the appropriate maintenance take place. So the facilities engineer will not be line authority over custodials and the like. That person will be more of a resource for the maintenance supervisors in not only the schools but in other municipal departments. So next Wednesday night you'll be hearing a little bit more about that, but I think it's important that people know that's really came out of last year, and hopefully we'll get that initiative in this year.
Sort of along the same lines, are the entries in the what's labeled capital improvement plan here different than what we have in our CIP? Just a point of clarification.
Yes.
So these are in addition to what we've done in CIP, right?
I suspect these are less than 5-year useful life.
Yeah, these are the small items which, when we were brought into the city capital plan fold, if you will, there was a cutoff level below which we would try to take out of a certain amount of money we'd maintain in our budget every year for the smaller items.
Right. And a lot of that is maintenance, upkeep, and
right.
things of that sort, which would not be capital.
Right.
Okay. Councilor.
Dr. Lister, before we leave, I always mention this every year, and that is our technical course offerings, our vocational courses. And I can't emphasize more than this year how I feel that the building trades is so important. If the governor is looking to keep children from dropping out, that's the avenue he should be looking to. Emphasize what an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter is getting per hour out there at the trades. Everybody can have a white shirt and a bow tie on and be at a computer, you know. And I noticed in your budget, the final expenditure is down from your previous year. Last year, or this year's budget is $951,000, and you're down to $926,800. So, you know, I think.
So you want to give us more money,
No,
Harold?
but I mean, I'd like to have Dr. Lister talk about this just briefly.
Councilor Whitehouse, I appreciate you bringing that up because career tech, vocational education, career tech is really important to everyone. And as you know, the high school being one of the state centers around from New Hampshire, we provide lots of different areas for students to be able to take those kinds of courses in building trades, in automotive, and childcare, and food service, and welding. Those are all very heavily prescribed. The teachers in those programs are all teachers who have degrees. They're all teachers who have worked in the industry. They're all working with the guidance department to be able to make sure that students have the opportunity to take those courses. And what's different in the last few years is that students who are taking rigorous academic courses also have the opportunity to take career tech courses because they too need to learn some of those skills, and that's been a real plus in the school. So we're very involved in developing programs. You've been to the center. You know that it's a beautiful new facility. They write lots of grants to be able to get supplemental programs, but it is one of the areas that the governor is looking at because there's a lot of value in that area. But the kids who are going to have to experience that are going to need some very specific kinds of things, and that's what needs to be determined.
Do we emphasize the hourly rates that's available out there for some of these tradespeople? Do we emphasize that to the students?
I'm sure the instructors are talking to students about that all the time. And anyone who needs to get a plumber knows how difficult that is and how expensive it is.
That's right.
So I appreciate you bringing that up because you're right. You do that every year, and that's good.
You knew what he was going to say. Yeah.
Well, so this year, I don't know why.
Oh, Councilor, yes.
Mr. Mayor. As a parent of a couple of young kids, I can also testify to the technological savviness of amazed. My 6-year-old sitting there doing things on the computer and picking it right up, and it's sort of it's testament to the, as mentioned, the way that computers have become kind of ubiquitous and incidental to all of our lives, and so they're throughout. I wondered, my question goes to, I wondered if you could address the two parts of the budget where we have computer teachers, throughout, obviously in the different buildings, and we have 4 computer teachers in the high school, and the total that we spend on computer instruction, $500,000 with computer teachers. And then we have in terms of the technology plan technicians, we have another 5 technicians and a network administrator that are, can someone just talk about, help us understand the relationship between those two, or the distinction and
Sure. Well, I can either clarify this or I can confuse this. But let me begin by saying that in the olden days, which wasn't too long ago, computer teachers were hired to teach typing and word processing and those kinds of things. Now those teachers are integrating technology across the curriculum. They are working with teachers to work on PowerPoint presentations, to work on lots of different software programs, and so it's become much more sophisticated, and there is at least one of those individuals in each one of the buildings, and obviously the high school has a couple of additional. But those teachers are really teaching technology and computers to not only the students, but to the teachers as well, with the really emphasis on impacting the integration of technology across the curriculum. And we have more techie kinds of people, technicians, because we have more equipment, we have more sophisticated equipment, and those people are a specialty in their own field because they are the people who like the mechanics. Like years ago, everyone used to be able to work on their cars, but now mechanics are very specialized, and it takes someone special to be able to look at the equipment, the hardware and software that we have. So they do provide a valuable service in the schools and in the whole curriculum.
Okay. Further questions or comments? All right. I see Oh, one more?
I have a comment off point. You're getting close to the end of the question and answer period, and this is a question that I really direct towards my fellow city councilors and to the city manager, and that would be, typically, we only have one left in terms of budget presentations, and then we have our deliberations. And in the past, we have asked the city manager to provide us with some pro formas of potential areas of ways to get the budget, let's say, to a tax rate that's below 4%, 3.75% tax rate increase. And typically, he's provided a various Plan A, Plan B, Plan C kind of thing so that we have it to think about. And while we can't vote, or we're not voting at this meeting, I just wonder if there's any interest in the room to have him start down that road rather than have no lead time from the last meeting with the municipal budget to the final meeting when we get together in our work session. Just a thought.
If I might, Your Honor. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll defer to.
Yeah, I have looked over these budgets over and over. Some of them are 88% salaries, and some are 83. I, for the life of me, hope that there's a magician here that can cut anything out of a 17% operating budget. I'm willing to look at it, but I find these budgets so far, what I've seen, to be in line with what is going on throughout the whole state, and we need to look at that and stop cutting.
What I am saying is not contrary to what you suggest, and that don't confuse the tax rate amount to the amounts that the departments are coming in, because when they go through the system, given how much of the budget is tax funded versus other sources, as you know, you can have a higher departmental budget and a lower tax rate increase. And so I'm just talking about that kind of thing at this point. Naturally, we may sharpen our pencils or not, or fight about it, but that's the kind of question I'm asking, not unlike we have asked in years past.
Yeah. Well, and if what you're getting at, and this is one of the things that I know personally, and I think as a council we've tried to do for all the departments, I know in different times people have said, look, what's really helpful is to have expectations defined as early in the process as possible. It makes it a lot easier to plan if you have some idea about where the council may be looking, not an exact number. And we try to do that, and indeed I think one of the benefits of it is we're probably in a position to finalize the budget at least a few weeks sooner than we have in the past couple of years. And I think maybe the school department disproportionately will enjoy benefits from that because of the way teacher contracts and the timing. And that's one of the desired outcomes. So I think if I hear the assistant mayor, one of the goals here, see if any councilors disagree with this, is to have the city manager, perhaps over the next several days as we meet again once or twice a week for the next couple of weeks, to identify ways that we may take that general area of tax increase that we've been talking about, and what scenarios, what mixes may or may not get us to that point. Oh, how abrupt! How abrupt! And no, I do not write greeting cards either.
Well, yeah, I think that would be helpful for us on the staff level. We did a couple years ago, change the budget process where we have 2 public hearings now, which I think is very good. We're in between that cycle right now where we're going to have another public hearing on May 14th, so it might be useful for the City Council to have that discussion. If it's okay, I'll bring back on May 9th probably some ideas. Primarily what I will be doing is I will, keeping with the philosophy that I've had in the past, I probably will be looking at non-operating items to just bring to you to talk about, because clearly that's a policy decision as well. With regards to the operating, which is here, the schools, I must say that I, again, will reiterate how pleased I am with the superintendent and the business administrator working very closely with us. They held the line in a lot of areas. We worked really closely to help, and they worked with us. And to be honest, they're pretty tight in those areas. And so from my perspective, what I will be looking at, unless I hear differently from the council, will be some non-operating areas. I've done some more analysis on, such as the county budget. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at a few other things. Since that's been adopted since the date that we started the process, we have the health insurance. We're saving $100,000 there. So there will be multiple things that I'll be bringing to the City Council that that will not specifically be talking about the operating budget. That said, I will say to the City Council, and I won't pick on any particular department, schools, police, fire, or municipal. I might say at the end of the day, you can reduce a non-operating by X, and in these areas, and these will be the effects. And if you want to get to the desired tax rate increase of whatever that is, then this is what you need to do in your operating end, but I won't identify schools, police, fire, or the like. So from that perspective, it gives the council really two areas that they can make decisions in. One in the non-operating, which really will not have direct impacts on the departments in this particular fiscal year, but two, dealing with the operating, if they choose to go that way, then it would be a policy decision that may entail staff adjustments, which I don't feel comfortable making that recommendation given the work that's been put into this. So what you'll see from me will primarily deal with non-operating, and it will also have just a more of a macro view of the operating budget if you choose to go to a certain level.
One thing I would say, just to provide, I think, some comfort for folks around the table, I think you can tell from the kinds of questions and the tenor this evening, I would not anticipate I would not feel a great deal of angst about the next couple of weeks if I were on the other side of this table this evening. And indeed, I think one reason for it is, if I understand it correctly, for example, the net number of total positions in the department is actually slightly less than last year, which was less than the year before. And I know that that's not something that's always easily come to. So appreciate the work that goes into it on the front end, and I think that's part of what you're seeing this evening, and that's part of why I say I appreciate the work that goes into it. But I would also say that in terms of other departments overall, compared to, say, the past couple of years, the numbers are pretty tight in terms of where the beginning and end of the discussion process, where those points are. They're actually pretty close together, I would say. So I would say, in terms of the school department, I wouldn't feel a great deal of angst from my perspective, and I would say that no one department, in terms of their operating budget, will likely have to feel a whole lot of angst, for that matter. That would be my anticipation. Sorry, Councilor.
Yes, I just would like to express that in seeing these budgets, I see, if anything, we're going to get down where everybody wants to be with a 3 or 4% increase. The only way we could do it is through personnel, and I would hope that we would never go to that extreme. And when you have only like 13% to operate with, I mean, when we're getting to the point that the kids almost have to buy their own books in first grade, it's going too far. And I didn't see at our last public hearing anyone out there that was upset over the way the city is running and what was coming in for the budget. They had plenty of opportunity to hear it. I understand that we have to be very careful and not, give carte blanche checks to everybody in every department, but we also have to make sure that our departments are able to operate and do the things and give the things to the people that they want, like good schools and public safety and the roads and whatnot. So I hope that we don't ever look towards personnel, but to me, in reading that budget, if you want to bring it down 3 or 4 more cents, that's about the only way you're going to go.
And just following up on that, what I will do for next Wednesday is I will provide the City Council, like I said, I'll be focusing in on the non-operating items to determine if there's some areas that we can adjust. And I think there might be some in the county area because you did adopt the budget, and I think there's a slight reduction we can possibly make there, but we're still analyzing it. The operating side will only be, I only will put it in a generic sense in that I will put a number in there to say, to achieve this goal, this is what you need to do from operating. Okay, so it's not going to say should come from police, fire, municipal, or schools. Then the council may say, geez, everybody did their job. We don't want to go that low. And then let's take a look at the non-operating items, and let's see where we might want to make those adjustments. And so then we need to have a basis of discussion so that before we go to the public hearing on the 14th and our final work session on the 15th, that the City Council can kind of see this whole thing gel. So that's really the intent, and it would give me some direction as well.
Counselor.
You know, I was in a way going to say what John was saying, the non-operating. You remember, even though I would be loath to cut the CIP, we did approve a larger CIP than we have in the past couple of years. So if, you know, depending on what we hear from the public and where it is, there is non-operating possibility there. But I also think it's really important that we go through the discipline of having the discussion, because the you know, the amount that people had to make up the squeeze with the increase in retirements this year, which is something I know we've all gotten used to, and because we know it's a given, we can't deal with it. But we can't deal with it at the city level. It can certainly be dealt with at the state level. You know, if we continue to have increases in that arena, it's going to get pretty difficult to do this. It also calls attention to the public to the pressures we might be under depending on what happens with this, the education funding. So the discipline of kind of going through this and understanding what the impacts are, even if we all right now thought, oh, this is just great, you know, we'll go for it. I mean, we really have to understand that, including, that's why I asked the question about retirements, because a lot of the little benefit that we get, if you want to think of it this way, has to do with you know, being able to replace slightly less expensive people.
Right.
So, I mean, understanding that, understanding the buyouts, seeing where we are with those things, the tightness of this budget this year in all of our departments makes me think that we need to talk about these things even more. Not necessarily because we're cutting them, but because we got to anticipate what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And
yeah, I think that's true, because I'm following up on what Councilor Dwyer said, because I don't think it's 08. I think we need to look at 9, 10, and 11.
Exactly.
And one of the things that, and you notice in my budget message, I started to allude to it, is the number of people that are retiring. Right now, I think you have probably around 70% of your teachers on top step. I think that's about what you have. So as those teachers go off, yes, there will be savings in the first year or two of them leaving. But as you build up, you could end up having maybe 80% of your teachers in another 3 years be on a step increase. So you would end up with COLA plus step increase, thereby creating a situation in the early years where you could have, in this particular instance, let's say you had a teacher that's on a lower step. I believe it's a 5% increase between steps until you start to get to the higher steps. You would end up with teachers that are getting 7% increases, which, you know, that was negotiated and that's part of the deal. So I don't think we should lose sight of that, and I think that's what Councilor Dwyer is getting at, because we have that phenomena happening in the police department. I believe, what's the number in the police department, 48% or 47% are now on steps. So the police department's budget is gone up substantially. People might say, well, gee, CPI is 2%. Why is the salary line going up? Well, we've collectively bargained in these step increases, and so as your workforce turns over and they start at the first step, you now have 5 years, and in the case of the schools, I think 14 years, where you're going to have people on steps and you're going to have COLA plus. Right. Which you're going to have to, I mean, I think this is more of a discussion that really, as Councilor Dwyer said, is going to be something that's going to be more 9, 10, 11 that we need to start looking at.
And as it interacts with our increased capital expenditures, for which our increased interest in bonds is going to be coming in 9, 10, and 11. So, you know, if we're adding people because we're saving things now, we don't want to have this perfect storm in 9, 10, and 11 where these increases all start to catch up with us, which is why I think it's really important to understand what we're doing, not necessarily to say, so this year we have to cut, but to understand kind of what's going to happen to us over the next couple of years.
But we still all have to understand that in order to cut any budget, you would have to go to personnel to do away with those issues. And we don't want to get to that part.
No, you wouldn't necessarily, to cut the overall city budget, have to go to personnel, because we do have a chunk of this that's non-operating.
17%,
Well, 17% on
13%.
millions of dollars.
I think, for the public in this particular year, I think it's important for everybody to understand that actually the number of positions, full-time positions in the city went down by about 2. So we are, and last year we had reductions as well. So we're heading in the right direction. It's just that I think it's an important thing to think about as we head in, and we probably should, the discussion really probably would be one that would take place maybe after this budget is done, and start talking maybe and take a look out at 3 years, do a full review of it.
You're right on, because the challenge in the future will be, as it always is, that there's a finite number of dollars that you have to spend every year. That's what you got. And if the cost of labor can go up disproportionately, then what Councilor Penelagos is talking about is there is a point, 2 years, 3 years, where you either got to make the pot of money grow, taxes going up faster than people's ability to pay them, or you start having to find it somewhere. And it may take a few years, but that's the fear, and it's something that, and again, this isn't even talking about how at the state level education is going to be funded. That's one that we're not even really talking about right now, and that could be a significant factor, including right here in Portsmouth. So,
Steve, before we end, I'd like to ask John just one question.
Sure.
Can we get a handle on the new assessed property that's coming on the tax rolls as of April 1? Can we get some sort of an idea, a ballpark figure? Like last year, it was $50 million of assessed property, new.
Yeah,
Okay, John.
It's well, we'll take a look at it, but it's in your revenue side of the budget, and I think it's at about 25 million that we added.
It's less than last year.
So you have to realize that there was a substantial amount of new growth that happened last year. And the other thing that you have to understand, and this goes into, I won't get too, you know what, I'll just say that it's 25 million, and it's less than last year because the growth has not been as significant as last year.
Hasn't changed.
Okay. Any other questions?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
There we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're adjourned. All right.